Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
WESN.
Now, I need to say something before I get into the first point that I want to hit this morning. I perceive myself as someone who is just smart enough to get themselves into trouble and not smart enough to get himself out of trouble, right? Kind of like, you know, I'm wary about being complicit with myself in terms of things like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you really don't know what you don't know, that you don't know, and how far you don't know. Now, I tend to throw my opinions out there, and I am subject to be corrected with sound logic, not emotional arguments. I don't necessarily care whose preference is what. What I care about is, all right, what are the merits of the case? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Now, I say all this to say that I'm not going to tell you that this is the absolute truth. This is just how I see this situation. And what I've seen might be one of the dumbest things I've seen any politician do or say. Now, it's not a big deal depending on your perception with regards to what was said. You know, it's not the end of the world. Price of bread didn't go up. Price of gas didn't go up. You know, the poverty line didn't go up. Government isn't going to go bankrupt over it. Well, who knows? Maybe there might be long-term considerations with regards to that. But it is one of the dumbest things I think I have seen a politician say. And you need to understand, I have seen Faris Alwari contradict himself. I have seen Reginald Amor just say some rather interesting things. I've seen Saddam Hussein, during the time as the opposition, literally fail at listening comprehension in Parliament multiple times when given a chance to correct himself. I have seen the current opposition leader not do her research before making a statement on a national security matter. Everyone, of course, knows everyone's favorite current minister in the office of the Prime Minister talking about a scanner that's not working. And I can't remember if in the video he was trying to get it working, but the point is a lot of people were asking, maybe because it wasn't plugged in, and it would have behooved him to maybe resolve that discrepancy. I have seen the then Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, deny being involved in anything to do with accusations about the merit list being withdrawn, only to then admit, well, no, he was there. I have seen the then Minister of Finance not understand the meaning or the process of an audit. I have seen the current Minister of Finance give his plans or his intentions and indirectly admit he didn't understand the meaning of the word diversification. But all of that pales in comparison to the current Minister of Energy making a very simple statement And I do wonder to what extent this statement, I just lost the page. To what extent this statement, I don't know if he didn't do his homework and he was briefed by someone that was the actual dummy in this scenario. And he was just hasty and he was just complicit and complacent and didn't really look into it. So he just said what he was told to say. I'm hoping that's what it is because this is the guy apparently that's negotiating our energy deals. But he said, as a former housing minister, I raised concerns years ago about allocations at Victoria Keys outside any fair and transparent process. Those questions remain, and no, sorry, that might be David Lee. We must commend Minister Roberts. No one can explain the process that was used, whether it was auction, random draw, or some other system, to ensure transparency and fairness. It is very curious that not one, but three members of the Gonzalez family were allocated those superior units in relative quick time. Because what was the process? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb, but given the fact that Victoria Keys is listed on private real estate companies' websites with units for sale and to rent, I don't know. Maybe that was the process. It literally, you type up Victoria Keys in Google, you press enter, the first thing that comes up is a real estate website. The second thing that comes up is the Victoria Keys page, which doesn't necessarily offer much unless you dig into it. The third thing that comes up is an article speaking about prices slashing for the units. Because as was said before, they're on the open market. So if units are on the open market, unless I'm wrong, unless I'm reading it wrong, unless I'm misinterpreting the situation, because it seems as though the units are on the open market, they're listed in real estate websites with both purchasing prices and rental prices. Now, I don't know about you, but I would imagine that if something is on the open market, then you do not need to A, auction it, B, distribute it via random draw, or C, some other system. And as Karen pointed out last week, it was the UNC that increased the economic bracket of this project. So I would like to know, is it that the intention was to auction off or have random lots for superior units? And then what would the rent be depending if it was random draw? Who is going to be in that random draw? If it's an auction, I wonder what would be the price range people would seek to auction, to buy those things at auction. I wonder. Would it have been higher? Would it have been lower? You have a project that basically, this is not a low-income housing project anymore. What is the whole thing about transparency and fairness? How many low-income families were not given an opportunity to buy a unit whose price range is in the $2+ million? Is that what low income is for Dr. Rudal Munilal? I don't even know why this is an issue, because here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. We have said on this show more than once, the opposition, it's almost like if they don't understand that they lost the election. They didn't just lose the election. They lost the election badly. They didn't just lose the election badly. Their support was pulled out from under them over issues that they now want to come and act as though, oh my gosh, look at all these new horrible things that are happening to TNT, without acknowledging and trying to sweep under the rug or ignore the fact that a lot of these things stem from their time in office. Therefore, it is more reasonable to say it is more their fault than the UNC's fault. But here now we have members of the government who seemingly forgot that they won the election, that they are in office. They're not opposition asking from the outside looking in. Why is it that a member of cabinet is going to make questions? Monilal commended Roberts, saying he has raised legitimate questions. Roberts is a minister in the Ministry of Housing. I'm sorry, did HDC records disappear? Were they hidden in the same place that the AG lost the case file? The former AG? There are 3 ministers in the Ministry of Housing. There's a whole ministry. There's the HDC itself. Is it that the HDC doesn't have complete records? How is it that a minister in the Ministry of Housing has to take questions like this to the public as though he has no avenue to find out the information himself? Notice what information was given on. Not the information that answers these low-hanging fruit questions, but the private information of the family, of the head of state of a neighboring CARICOM country. This is not too dissimilar to the Brent Thomas matter, because I would imagine there should be no political cover over the Brent Thomas matter, because it's the political opponents of the previous party. Now, here's the thing, in both cases, let's just say that there isn't a paper trail, right? Because who's going to leave a paper trail of potential corruption? Then can't you interrogate the people who are there? And if they don't have a good answer, penalties, consequences, follow-up investigations, I don't know. This seems obvious to me. How is it that the trail of these things just disappear? And we're not talking about the trail of criminals out in the bush doing a crime. We're talking about government agencies and their operations. We can't even look into that successfully. In the case of the Brent Thomas matter, the police have an inability to look into the police. But at least you could see where that's a highly controversial situation. You don't expect anybody to have a paper trail there. What you will expect, of course, is, right, why are there no records for this? And when you ask the question, who authorized this? I don't understand how you could just look at the entire chorus of police officers and they just kind of do this and you accept that. That's the implication. I don't know if the commissioner is listening or not, but that is the implication. This isn't an indictment on Suzette Martin, because as long as it's up in the air, it hangs over her head, whether she likes it or not. I can't change that fact. People will hold that against her, as they do many things in the court of public opinion. But I guess no one cares to get to the truth of that matter. But this sale of units put on the open market, you mean to tell me that you do not have the capability to call the HDC to get the information? You have to go to the public? Why do you have to go to the public with this? I understand. I have, on many occasions, on this show, voiced my vehement disagreement with the position of Ralph Gonsalves on the U.S.-Venezuela matter and the Zone of Peace matter. I understand that it's not a position shared by a lot of academic intellectuals and blah, 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 all of whom seem quite content with telling Venezuelans, yeah, that military dictator that's holding a country hostage, you all deal with him somehow magically because, you know, we are going to practice our full Caribbean aloofness right now. Cool. That's a separate issue. But it seems as though that's all they got because Ralph Gonsalves is going up, apparently. St. Vincent and Grenadines have their elections coming up. Have the elections coming up. I wonder what would have happened if regional leaders started to spill tea, started to give out Bmobile and Bacchanal statements on the UNC, if the UNC would have appreciated it if that happened before April the 28th. I wonder. But the sad part about it is, this is literally one of the most pathetic political attacks I've ever seen because it's completely nonsensical to me. Again, if I am missing something, please tell me. Because based on what I've seen publicly available, this don't make sense. You're implying corruption in a case where, at least on the surface, it seems plainly obvious that there is very little room for corruption, unless you want to say it's corrupt for people to buy things on the open market when it's available and they have the money. It's not as though, because I believe there are units listed for sale. What does that imply? It implies that they're not sold out. What does that imply? It implies that there's no magical group of people who wanted to get units in Victoria Keys but were unfairly blocked out because the family of the president or prime minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines decided they wanted 3 units for themselves. And by the way, I haven't looked this up myself, but I was told that the prices dropped between when they bought it and now, which means that they lost money. The prices dropped, I believe, because the units ain't selling. So I don't get it. In fact, I kind of understand Raif Gonzalez, Prime Minister's Raif Gonzalez's position. He's saying that the country's relationship, I lie. Minister Sobers is saying the country's relationship with its CARICOM neighbor remains cordial. I don't know how he could say that, to be honest. But I'll say this, they say that about Venezuela. Doesn't seem cordial to me. Now, what I wanted to say was, with regards to Prime Minister Gonzalez, this is mostly a non-issue. Although, if he wants to go through with a lawsuit of defamation, I don't know if technically there's a case, because to what extent was something that was directly said. And then the other thing is, to what extent, I don't know if, because it will have an effect. This is the problem, right? This is where it gets tricky. It potentially could have an effect with regards to his public reputation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Can he make a case in a court in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? I don't know how that would work. It will probably have to be ICNTT, but he can potentially point to the effect that it will have on his reputation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Was enough said that was direct enough that could potentially be considered defamation. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know. I just think this whole thing is ridiculous. From my point of view, the only thing, why would you go after the Prime Minister of another Caribbean country in this manner? The only thing that comes up is the whole zone of peace, US-Venezuela situation. And in my mind, I'm like, what are you gaining? I would be very stunned if Raif Gonzalez would change his tune or stop talking. Also, I believe the current administration is also attempting to, I'm not too sure, but they're trying to push back on Mia Motley's statements. I can't remember fully. So, but they don't necessarily have, again, they don't really have a good argument here. So they pull this HDC thing out of their hat. Just because it's HDC doesn't mean it's some sort of low-income government allocation. So I don't know. I am hoping that this is literally a situation where you have 2 politicians that are just bad at their job and got advice from someone stupid, politically. Because this makes no sense to me. But then again, the PNM did similar things where they doubled down on things that made no sense. So this is par for the course. And that's where I have the most annoyance. Doubling down on nonsense to suit your agenda. I mean, let's put it this way. The implication of this argument that the Minister of Energy must commend the Minister in the Ministry of Housing for asking questions about the operations with regards to the HDC. Yes, potentially during the time of the PNM, but still, I'm pretty sure what grand conspiracy, because they're then saying that the PNM has given the family of Ralph Gonsalves benefits over the years, whatever, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Great benefits, okay, right. What else are the other benefits? Because paying market value for something doesn't really seem like a benefit to me. So I guess in that case, I do wonder if the Gonsalves family could go to a court and say, this statement here that we receive great benefits, and then he pointed to us buying items at market value that were on sale in the open markets. There was no evidence of the great, what great benefits? You see, that's the trick. He didn't say what other great benefits. And this whole situation, what's the implication? The implication, whether they know it or not, whether they intend it or not, the implication is all you're stupid. We all stupid. The people in St. Vincent stupid. Everybody but us. That is to say, the government is stupid. They don't actually make any substantial claims of benefits besides buying the 3 units on the open market. Then they conveniently, how were these units given to them, sold to them? We don't know. I guess we can't read paperwork because maybe we can't read. What else am I to think? We don't know how to dial a telephone and ask a question of the HDC. Because if the HDC didn't have records of the transaction, then you should say the HDC doesn't have records of the transaction. That's what you should tell us. If you want to say paperwork is missing, then say that. But given the fact that you didn't say that, I am left to assume that there is nothing missing. And you just didn't check because you probably already know what the answer is. And the answer is much little about nothing. Based on what you've given us so far, you have. This is why I'm saying that they think everyone is stupid, because they're basically trying to present a non-issue and make it into an issue. It's almost like if they're desperate to hit back at Ralph Gonsalves, but it's not even hitting back at Ralph Gonsalves like what the Venezuelans are doing to our Prime Minister. Because this arguably is a different level of low. So, we had an election. I hoped for change. I am questioning what change did we get. We are now in the territory of the Auditor General situation. Unless I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. In fact, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Please, God, let me be wrong. But we are in the territory of the Brent Thomas situation, of the meritless situation, of the Auditor General situation. That's the territory that we have swum in now. I don't want to hear what the PNM did justifies anything the UNC did. That's not how this is supposed to work. If we think that's how it works, that's why we're perennially in the situation we find ourselves in. The next guy is supposed to be better, not slightly better, not better for us but not for you, better. That's the whole point of everybody wins. I'll agree with the Prime Minister where CARICOM is fractured, but we don't have to literally contribute it in such an egregious and, dare I say, not just unnecessarily, but potentially pathetic manner. How desperate could you be to get an issue? I have no idea. This literally makes zero sense to me. Again, I really hope I have it wrong. But given the fact that it's listed for sale Is there documentation that says that they got the units before they were on the open market? Someone, please, actually provide evidence and a timeline and a reasonable argument, and not just inferences and subtle hints and insinuations of nothing and nonsense. Because the more you have to insinuate and obfuscate things and not be clear, the more I know that you're just blowing smoke. Here's the thing. Regardless of whether there's anything actually wrong with the situation or not, you need to demand from your politicians to communicate better. Because on one hand, it's either it's lazy or incompetent communication, but on the other hand, it's potentially intentional. Because they don't actually want to say what's accurately there, because what's accurately there is a far cry from what is implied to be there. And the fact that it's left in this position, because I don't know what the absolute truth is, but it's left in this position where they're just dripping and drabbing, feeding us. For what? Just because the man, okay, he has a different international agenda than you. I don't know if there's a lot of Trinbagonians that actually support it. I actually don't. But just because I don't support him on that doesn't mean that I'm going to join in a hatchet job that is meaningless. This is the extent. This is where we've reached now. At least with the PNM, the bubble was in-house. At least with the PNM, the nonsense was within our borders. And I was all with the UNC when they were in opposition questioning Jindal. I didn't see that as bubble. But this is a whole next level. Now we've gone international with this nonsense. Probe Victoria Keys. Yeah, a phone call. Get a staffer to go and get the documentations for the HTC, bring them to your office and read. That's probably all the extent of the probe. I don't know. Because now, well, not now, yesterday, same Minister of Energy had to say that deny any interference by his government in the St. Vincent and Grenadines elections process. Buddy, perception. You really can't expect people to say, oh, yeah, no, there's no interference at all. It doesn't matter if it's intentional or not. A smarter politician, here's the thing. If we go with what you say at face value, then I have to conclude that you're not that smart of a politician. Because a smarter politician will understand, regardless of how well-meaning the intentions are, it can be perceived as interference in their election process. That's if we take what you see at face value and we believe that there are no bad intentions here at all. No. Now, if we consider the possibility of bad intentions, then we know this is all blowing smoke. You don't care about the potential repercussions and perceptions of how people will take it, of how the people in St. Vincent and Grenadines will take it, of how the local people will take it. You care about that because you just want to throw out a political attack. That is the potential goal of a bad faith statement. So which one is it? And this is something that I've asked about the PNM multiple times. When nonsense is presented to us, incomplete, obfuscated nonsense, it boils down to, well, either you're stupid because you didn't realize the consequences of what you're saying, or you had bad intentions. Which one is it? Or you miscommunicated, in which case we're back to stupid. And I'm told, don't call politicians stupid. I can't help it. The last set of people that did stupid things, they lost 100,000 votes. So maybe I know just enough to not always be wrong. Maybe. All right. Sometimes I wonder how we reached where we reached. But then I look up north in more than one country, and I don't know if this is one of those things where, you know, it's a bad thing to think, oh, well, we're not as bad as them, so we're better off. Better off when things are bad? No, I'd rather be well off in terms of our ethics and our morality and our governance and our judgments and et cetera, but I don't know. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the daily review. I started speaking about it yesterday. I am somewhat disappointed, and I really didn't want to follow up with regards to the local crime situation today. Some of these stories are bothering the hell out of me, maybe even more than that last thing with regards to the Victoria Keys gate that never was gated. We'll get into that next. Stay tuned.
Every time someone steps into your elevator, they trust it will carry them safely. That's why preventative maintenance matters. It protects lives and shields you from liability. It prevents sudden breakdowns that disrupt business and drain budgets. And it keeps you compliant, so you never have to second-guess safety. With Ardent Solutions, you're not just maintaining elevators, you're protecting people, preserving trust, and keeping your building moving forward.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Before I move on, I just have to get this off my chest. Before I move on, I just have to get the... So the Gonzalez family benefited under the PNM. The only benefit mentioned were the 3 units. The 3 units that the scope of the project was increased in 2011, I believe under the then UNC covenant, which basically pushed the unit prices beyond the reach of the intended demographic, resulting in slow sales, not allocations. Not drawn by lots, because 113 units still remain unsold as of now. There's no line of people looking to buy these things. But the best part is, not only did the Gonzalez family potentially lose net value, because the prices of the units had to be dropped before the election by the PNM administration because of the 113 units unsold, but also, according to an HDC official, it was evidence units were not selling because of poor construction work done during the PNM's tenure. So I would just like to ask, how is this a benefit? You're telling me that you could have a member of the HDC say that the construction work on these units were poor, but it was such a great benefit to give Gonzalez family the opportunity that no one else in the entire world had, and that is to buy units that are not selling on the open market. This rare opportunity. It's so rare there are 113 left. What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't understand this. Please, someone make this make sense to me. Make this make sense later. Now, daily review. Let's go. All right, let's switch gears because I really wish, I hope, this is also a case where I hope I'm very wrong, right? This is also a case where I hope I'm very wrong. In fact, most of the time, I'm happy if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, that means that issues that concern me are not as big as I think they are. Now, the TTPS is assuring citizens that it is safe to shop and attend public events, despite murders and violence continuing during the current SOE. And this is the thing that I just can't get over. We ain't like in week 1, week 2 of an SOE. We in month, what is this? 7, month 8th? Yeah, something like month 7th for the year of a state of emergency. There was at least 6 months before now, right? Why is it, in this case I believe it was DCP Martin, but why is it that the TTPS has to tell us, oh no, it's safe? Huh? There is a 41% decrease in murders from 2024 for the same period. Right. But has there been, I would just like to know, what is the rate of murders for the year to see what the trends are within 2025, not compared to 2024. Because again, better than doesn't mean good. You see, bad is better than very bad. Very bad is better than dismal failure. But notice, none of those things are good, are decent, are even average. Now, the reason why I say that is there have been a couple more murders. And first of all, let me point out 2 murders a day is essentially how you get to over 600 murders. Because actually, if we literally got an average of 2 murders a day, we'd be over 700, I believe. Right? 720, 730. So I believe at the very least between yesterday and today, there were 2 murders reported, as well as other instances of violence. Now, the first one that caught my attention was a situation where, in the home of a family of 3, assailants apparently went into the house. I'm not entirely sure what time. They shot the husband, and then after telling the daughter to go to her room, when she came out with the commotion, and they shot and killed the mother. Directly, the reports are bullet wounds in the head. So, the father eventually died while being taken to San Fernando General Hospital. The mother seemingly, I mean, execution style is a statement that potentially could be subjective, but let me just double check that fact on being shot in the head. Yeah, well, blood streaming from her head. Now, here's the kicker. This wasn't a home invasion gone wrong. Apparently, the prevailing theory is that this is over logging rights, in that the victim The male victim, his company, I believe, acquired logging rights for a part of land approved for quarrying, and then there was a fallout with a competitor. This isn't a, well, I don't know if this is with regards to the whole, I don't know if because when you leave things legally ambiguous and have loopholes and windows open, you make it easier for crime to come in. So this is a speculative, purely speculative question. With regards to quarrying, essentially it came out in the press that almost all quarrying, right, or a good chunk of it, is done illegally because the quarriers cannot actually get the proper documentation. Meanwhile, to what extent has that allowed criminal enterprise to come in? Because if criminal enterprise could take advantage of things like CPEP and URP, why can't they take advantage of an industry that is apparently not regulated by unofficial policy? Because the paperwork is just not forthcoming, but they need the material. So we turn a blind eye and we hope, we try and get the police to turn a blind eye until or unless there's a political motivation to go after specific people. I won't say who that is, just note which quarry operators with, you see now it starts to make more sense with regards to certain quarry operators that got shut down a year or two ago and their protestations. Now it starts to make a little more sense. Because if the whole industry operated like that way, why did they get singled out? So I don't know if there's illegal criminal activity that's in addition to what's going on, and unfortunately, because, I mean, they're going after not the owner of the company that acquired the login rights. They're going after someone who apparently worked for the company. That's crazy to me. I'm a businessman that likes to do unethical things, and I'm not going to do unethical thing. I'm going to go after his employees. Now, maybe that's to cause the other guy's company to collapse. Now, the question is, again, is it because there's criminal enterprise around this whole thing, or is it that even during a state of emergency, now we've reached the point where no, for business interests, not criminal business interests, for business interests, well, human lives mean nothing during a state of emergency. Let's not also, if you haven't realized, essentially, a poor young girl of 19 years old, she didn't directly witness her parents' deaths, but she essentially heard her parents' deaths. Let's understand the level of depravity that this is. They sent her to her room. Her mother also told her to go to her room just before she was killed. They sent her to her room just before they killed her mother, with her father bleeding out on the floor. I mean, at this point, I need to be grateful to God, just as a citizen on the outside looking in, that the young lady wasn't also killed. There's a whole host of implications with regards to that. I'm not going to say it publicly on air. Then there was another murder where a Chaguanas woman was shot in the head, I believe, shot in the head, thrown from a car, and she was, well, found dead. And again, this is allegedly not no drug dealer, drug baron, gun runner, human trafficker. This was someone that worked, she had a normal 9 to 5, plus she was opening her own small business. The theory that one relative believes, this is the quote from a relative, this is a different time we are living in. Some men can't take rejection at all. If they feel a little disrespected, that's it. Life means nothing at all. Now we've gone beyond domestic murder, suicide, where the husband killed the wife or whatever, right? Now it is apparently the theory of a relative, of this victim is that maybe she rejected a man who tried to hit on her. And that was it. That's all it takes. Because we need to remember we're in a state of emergency now. It seems as though too many people are forgetting this fact. It's almost like if we're not really under state of emergency at all. Then, as a nation, I will be grateful on behalf of all of us. There was apparently a 25-year-old man in Belmont. He was shot during a birthday party. Fortunately, he is still alive. Don't know why he was shot. Then, in a case of where I am very grateful to God, fate, karma, whatever, a 68-year-old victim of a home invasion managed to overpower a 22-year-old man and seize his gun. The young fella brought a gun, pointed it at the pensioner, said, "This is a robbery," ordered the old man to lie on the ground, and the old man basically did a Clint Eastwood and said, "Get off my lawn," took the gun from him and declared citizen's arrest. This is not something I would ever recommend. For you to basically attack someone that is pointing a gun at you, because the gun did go off, it fortunately didn't hit anybody. For you to decide to attack someone that has a gun already pointed at you, this is not something that, you know, just out of context would ever recommend. Fortunately for this pensioner, he managed to succeed to not just not die in the initial engagement, but get the gun away from the assailant, and to some degree, not have to then make the choice of, do I have to pull the trigger or not? Maybe this young man wasn't that prepared to commit violence, unlike some of the other criminals within the last 24 hours. Maybe he hesitated. Maybe the pensioner saw the hesitation. But one of the things with regards to private citizens defending yourself with lethal force is many of us might not be able to deal with potentially taking the life of another human being, even if they are a danger or a threat to us or our family or our friends. So it's not just the fact that the pensioner managed to succeed in such a risky endeavor and survive, but also the fact that he didn't have to contemplate and execute such a permanent choice. We're in a state of emergency. Then, of course, it's the whole situation about more fishermen being abducted. I didn't even get into that story yesterday. This is the thing. Just to switch gears slightly. There's a report. 3 fishermen were kidnapped in, Trinidadian fishermen were kidnapped in Venezuela. They have been released. 4 other men have now allegedly been abducted. Right? Now, I'm not sure if it says where they were abducted from, if it was in Trinidadian waters, Venezuelan waters, but it goes back to what the police has been saying. Yes, the fish might be in Venezuelan waters. Going in Venezuelan waters, if you're TNT fishermen, without any sort of legal agreement, is illegal. French fishermen could, at least at a time, went into UK waters during when the UK was in the EU because they had agreements in place for that. So, I don't know what CARICOM agreements we have, but Venezuela are part of that as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong. Now, 20,000 US ransom for 4 fishermen. I don't know. Apparently they got the money. There's a lot going on between our waters that we don't know for sure. That's all I'll say about that. But This is one of those times where now, being involved in things in the waters now, yeah, I don't know about the rest of you. I don't feel safe right now. Because the issue is, now I don't know about the shooting in Belmont and the robbery where the pensioner got the gun away from the young man. That could have really just been a robbery. There was no intention to commit violent action, and it could be a young fella kind of getting involved in things that he was beyond him and beyond his determination. But the two murders that I mentioned earlier, unless someone could tell me that there's some underlying thing, some real complex web of criminal activity going on, or corruption, or extortion, or something, hey, it looks as though, and of course the police will never want to tell us as much as possible, right? They will never want to tell us as much as they could possibly not tell us. They won't tell us. That's what they want, because they don't know how to communicate. We've reached the point where I have to wonder, is the media ambassador program going to just wallow? Because whoever started it, the program is now far removed from that point, that way, which is a shame, because it's still a better public relations attempt than so many institutions in the country. But with that said, the implications and the motivations behind these killings are so mundane, they're scary. A man vexed because he got rejected and disputes over logging rights. It's not about drugs or the block or even reprisals, no. Murder is now how we are going to settle our differences. Not just the criminal differences, but day-to-day differences. And if that might start to slightly sound familiar to you, let's not forget about the school fight, the brawl in front of the police that was reportedly over a boy. That potentially the initial warnings to the potential victims were that knives were going to be used in the attack. Because this is how we settle our differences now. During a state of emergency. Just like to point this out. This came out yesterday. But I want to highlight this again because this is something that I've spoken about. Because of the U.S. actions. The supply of drugs to this country has been significantly reduced. Now, according to a report, this was in The Guardian, I believe it was yesterday, 2 days ago, so it could be Sunday. So according to The Guardian, on average, 12 tons of marijuana was smuggled into Trinidad and Tobago every week. You know marijuana, the thing that they decriminalized that you could grow in your own house? Apparently, in 2024, last year, there was an increase in marijuana importation, or dare I say smuggling, really. So, the marijuana trade was experiencing substantial growth because why? Now it was harder to look at anyone that possessed marijuana and say you're committing a crime because they're never going to have more than 30 grams on their person. That's all. The laws essentially created loopholes for individuals to abuse the usage of marijuana and to make it a lot harder to prove that they're illegally selling marijuana. Because they'll have 30 grams on them, and then they'll sell it, and then they'll get more, and then they'll sell it. That's all. And everyone will want to buy, generally speaking, or potentially might want to buy the maximum amount. So this is not hard. And if they want less, they want less. But no one's going to buy more than that, so they don't need to carry on them at any one point in time more than that. And the reason is the foreign brands are more specialized. The production of them and the strength of them as products, they're more mature. We now start. But the whole concept of growing our own marijuana and the like, that didn't really translate to people necessarily growing their own marijuana. It translated into people now having cover to buy marijuana and to look into more fancy specialty variants because demand increased, and because demand increased, the business opportunities there led to more being brought in. So, if it wasn't for the US, 12 tons a week, there's no report for 2025 yet. But, is that continuing during a state of emergency? I don't know. Someone please tell me. Because if we can't close our borders for a pandemic, just because we declare a state of emergency, how is that magically making things different? Now, the last thing I'll say is this. Well, not necessarily the last thing. The Commissioner of Police has warned illegal quarry operators against engaging in the illicit act lest they face the full brunt of the law. Which is a hell of a thing to say because not too long ago there was a whole news story about how the fact that the illegal quarries were going to go back to work and cease their work stoppage that they did in protest of the whole situation. And now the commissioner is saying, don't do it. Do not break the law or the vengeance of the MOCO will fall on you. Now, I don't know about you, but I was hoping, I mean, maybe I'm just not cultured enough, the vengeance of the MOCO. I was maybe thinking that we could have something a little bit more to dissuade criminals. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but didn't Erla take flack about saying, you know, we need Jesus? I mean, on the surface, she ain't wrong. We do need Jesus right now. Or whatever you believe, we need that. Whoever or whatever you believe, we need that. Except, no offense, but if you're an atheist, we don't need what you believe in because you believe in nothingness, and right now, that is definitely not going to be helpful. Nothing is unhelpful right now. So beyond that, whatever legitimate faith that all of you have out there, we need some of that because I don't know what else you're going to do at this point if we are to rely on the vengeance of the MOCO. Perhaps we should look into alternative forms of punishment. We'll get into that after this. Stay tuned.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
I'm back here and we have a first caller for the morning. Mr. Digger Martin is on the line, so we'll take the call before I get into the last point I want to make this morning. Mr. Digger Martin, good morning. Caller, you on the air?
Good morning, Sean, and all your listeners.
Morning.
A couple of issues, and I'm going again after the Fourth Estate for the publicity that they have given to the former Prime Minister. I believe they're fueling public mischief, and I believe the former finance minister under Patrick Manning, Karen Yunus-Bishara, has gotten to him under his skin. Now, I hope the TTPS, as lame as they are now, take note of what public mischief could be. And I'm hoping that they're not waiting for Maduro to regurgitate what he has said with respect to our platforms, oil platforms. We can remember Venezuela attempted to dismantle and ram the oil platform in Guyana. And I'm hoping that Ralph Gonzalez doesn't utter the same words of only disturbing the peace because they will attack the oil platform. So that is, to me, that is public mischief. And the Fourth Estate must not take things through a PNM lens.
But wait, caller,
and I want to
draw this. Caller, why is Dr. Gitteroli's words public mischief when you're saying, well, there was an incident in Guyana that did happen?
All right, same thing he's uttering. They wanted to ram the oil platform in Guyana, Maduro and his vessels, and the thing. So that, I don't believe is a coincidence, is deliberately done for the words to come out. Because you remember, the PNM at one time was saying the current Prime Minister was a drunkard, and Maduro took those words and come back and said, and likewise, I believe Gonzalez would also say so. I want to go global. And why I'm saying the Fourth Estate, basically watching everything through the eyes of the PNM, what watch what has happened to Nepal and Bangladesh. The government was changed because social media brought the information that was relevant to countries that was under attack. Now, let me get to my point I want to talk about. I want to talk about a former CCJ judge by the name of Ralston Nelson uttered some words during a dinner at the LATT, sparking debate and deep thought in my brains with respect to civility with lawyers and the amount of lawsuit. And I find it strange. He was given $800,000, close to $1 million, to investigate a missing file was not missing. He did not say anything about an AG who has become a judge now in the Eastern Caribbean for lying on an affidavit, blaming it on mental capacity. If you have a mental capacity, how can somebody choose you as a judge? I mean, this is a sort of argument and deliberation to choose somebody like that. And I am saying, understand how he is basically pontificating on the legal framework of Trinidad and Tobago. Understand how he became an appeal court judge. De la Bastide was the first one to take from taking to the bar to make a chief justice of an appeal court judge. He was the second one, and they attempted to do that with the current AG, and they balked. All of that started with a constitution in 1975 that is flawed because it was done during a no-vote campaign. So that is why I'm saying we have to be very careful of watching everything through a P&M lens. That is why I'm annoyed that we're promoting the rubbish KCR has been talking to incite, to probably destabilize the country. And it is another person silently intervening into it.
Well, wait, how is what he's saying destabilizing another country?
Because he could cause public mischief. Everybody's saying you have to be very careful in an SOE. That was being taken. Remember the email getting? They had another judge in here too. And you're using people externally. You're using it in a different kind of way to cause mischief, public mischief, make it anxious for your followers to troll it all over the place. I would not be surprised if Maduro said and if Raul Gonzalez said. That is how it has become politicized. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. But I mean, the thing is, I don't necessarily agree with the statements, depending on the situation. Yes, Venezuela has certain capabilities, but one of the things is we are potentially a bit to the east of the main axis of whatever goes on. If anything happens in Venezuela, that is to say regime change. Unless Maduro is hiding somewhere in the east, a lot of our stuff might be out of the line of fire. And people need to understand, like, that's a lot of ocean, that's a lot of land, right? The Americans have to be like next to us, or the Venezuelans have to run in our direction for us to get involved. It's not that it's impossible, but when you hear about things like what's going on with piracy in Somalia or the Houthi rebels shooting at ships or whatever, it's a lot, I believe, I could be wrong, but it's because there's choke points in those areas, right, that the illegal activity is exploiting. We're close to the Venezuelan coast, but we're potentially not in, within the vicinity of military operations, unless it goes, the entire country, but America hasn't deployed enough assets to go that far. Now, if Venezuela wants to preemptively attack us, which I'm not going to say is impossible, it just doesn't make sense to me. They're not really going to accomplish anything. They'll actually just give America, a casus belli. So why do you want to give America an excuse to come in, to justify further? I mean, yes, I get it. They don't need an excuse to go in. They're probably going to go in anyway, but they might be waiting for an excuse to go in, and that's with all the saber rattling. So I don't agree with what Dr. Keith Rowley said. I didn't get a chance to speak about it today. Because I just don't think that the danger on a practical level is all there. There's always a random chance that Maduro bad mind, but that's one of those things where it's like there's always a random chance that the whale ends tomorrow because an asteroid hits it. Like the whole he just have a bad mind, so he take a bad mind. I can't use that as analysis. But here's the thing: there's a deeper question with regards to your statements there, right? Who determines what is newsworthy? Who determines what opinion is worthy to put out there? This is the inconvenient truth. Ideally, in a democracy, all opinions will, once the opinions are not, and you see, this is subjective because dangerous opinions is a slippery slope. Now, if it's a case of yelling fire in a theater where there is no fire and you potentially cause a stampede, that's different. How do you judge public utterances like that as dangerous or reckless? It's subjective. It's ultimately going to be subjective. Here's the thing. Ideally, the individual people will exercise good judgment and the good ideas rise to the top and the bad ideas get pushed to the bottom. And we know that's not how it always goes. But conversely, if we start to censor whose opinions are allowed to be published and whose are banned from distribution channels, that is a very slippery slope towards fascism and dictatorship. We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
I want to address something firstly. On last time I called in to speak about the issue with
the
Prime
Cricket
Minister,
Academy. No.
and they saying that no
Yeah.
agency, Unicode facility is going to be used for events, carnival events. I want to say this to Mr. Mova. The issue is not about what that I have. It was not about if he misunderstood when I talked about noise. My issue is that there are so many low-hanging fruits when it comes to noise pollution that could have been tackled before this action was taken. So many low-hanging fruits between the police service and the EMA to get together and tackle this issue of bars and loud noise that a lot of things, the fireworks, there were so many other things that they could have tackled. Hence the reason I am saying that they are attacking the culture, Trinidad and Tobago culture. And if he wants to debate that, I could debate that. Now, let me go on to what you were talking about this morning, Sean. The marijuana issue that you spoke about, and that reported that the 12 tons a week. Let me say this. When I vehemently disagreed with the Prime Minister of the last administration and the National Security Minister for decriminalizing marijuana, and your media ambassador at the time and yourself didn't agree with me. This is the reason that you're talking about now. You're now coming around to understanding what I was looking at.
Well, caller,
with respect to this decriminalization.
Caller,
Yes,
but in the past, I've already said, I already agree with you at some point in the past, because I said we're basically in the worst of both worlds. We are not experiencing the benefits of decriminalization, and I did acknowledge we are experiencing the negatives of both worlds.
But yes, Sean. But I want to go back to saying that some of us who have looked at this issue long before you finished school.
That's fair.
Understood what would happen if you decriminalize marijuana in an environment where you have a lawless society.
Yeah,
and
that's
coming
fair.
back to that, this is what we are.
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago is a lawless society. Lawless society. I wish sometimes, Sean, that you could sit down with those two gentlemen that you sometimes have on your program. Those two police officers the ASP Arun and Mr. Ali, and they could candidly sit down with you and have a candid conversation with you, no holds barred, and tell you what really goes on in Trinidad and Tobago. That issue with the murder of the gentleman and his wife in their own house over what might be logging rights.
Might be.
That is Trinidad and Tobago. People have been settling long before this. People have been settling scores by hiring people. I remember I said to you, Trinidad, there's a murder for hire business operating at the police service, not tackling. For years, this has been going on. This murder for hire is a business. Just like how the marijuana thing is a business. Just like how the supermarket business is a business. That this is a business in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's an organized business. And they are not tackling it. Hence the reason why this thing can happen. Let me say this to you. I had an experience recently where one of my friends had an issue with some family and with respect to property. And I listened to that man. Some things had happened, and I listened to that man. But people coming to that man. I was in his presence, and people were coming and telling him who they know that he could hire to do the other people something. This is people who just come in randomly, and talking to him about that. And I looked at it and I said, this red Trinidad and Tobago is really at the bottom of the barrel. We don't want to fix this. If it is that we had a serious government, this one, the last one, the one before that, I keep saying this. They are not serious. They are not worth governing this country. Hence the reason I said to you, have a no vote campaign and put your vote in a place where they recognize you and they know that there's a group of people in this country that fed up at the crap and fed up at all of them, all the politicians on both sides. You spoke about it, this issue with Mr. Gonzalez. This is what Trinidad and Tobago is. Imagine, Sean, the criminal. You said about crime, the murder rate. We should not have a murder rate. We are 328 or something like that for the year, with over 6 months of a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago, and murder rate still high. They kidnapping people as like normal. This is what happened in Trinidad and Tobago. When you talk about not feeling safe, Sean, let me say this to you. When I go down, I go down by one of my properties, and this is something that I never used to do, Sean. When I go there now, I make sure I am armed when I go there. I never used to do that because this is what Trinidad and Tobago has become. So I have to make sure and protect myself when I go down on my own place. Because of some miscreant might decide they see my vehicle parked up there and I might be there by myself. Imagine that. That's what I reach to. I have to make sure I am armed in Trinidad and Tobago in 2025. Have a good day, Sean.
Thank you, caller. No, it's true. Not that long ago, a friend comes by the house, it's nighttime around 8 o'clock, and you all end up talking for half an hour. That's normal, right? And which is funny because, when my mom would do it, she would kind of like not really take it on, but if I would do it, she would get all nervous, even back in the day. But now, just don't do it. Just don't. I essentially feel uncomfortable outside the house at night, period. It could be 8, it could be 11. And then at times even during the day, be wary between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. because that's when a lot of residential areas will be at its quietest. Unless your neighborhood has a lot of, single income homes and there's a at-home parent, right? So we are a lawless society, which is why, with regards to the noise pollution thing, I think we need to kind of understand it's bigger than noise pollution because it's cultural, not just cultural in the sense of, unfortunately, it's ingrained, loud music, heavy bass, we fit in, but also cultural in the lawlessness. And then that goes back to a lot of people's complaints with regards to the TPS not responding properly. With regards to, I think it was the murder of the young lady who was shot in the head and thrown out the car, who they think, one relative thinks it might be over rejecting someone that hit on her. Sorry, I see that we have an image there and it broke my train of thought. Okay, let's take this comment. This is good. This is good. We do not want to feel safe. We want to be safe. Well said. Well said. Because, right. With regards to that second murder, the young lady, apparently the relatives were basically saying it took half an hour for the police to respond. And this is a potential dead body here who, at the very least, one would think, evidentiary value, the body needs to be secured. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know nothing, I watch too much TV. But at the very least, you don't want individuals interfering with a suspected murder. A bullet hole in the head generally kind of implies that. There was no reason for her to take her own life, so someone took it from her. Half an hour from murder. We have Move on the line. We'll take the call. Good morning, caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
And good morning to Mr. San Fernando. And I want to explain something to Mr. San Fernando, and I hope you understand. Boss, we in Trinidad and Tobago we like to use the word culture. And I don't think enough of us understand that culture is not just about the arts. Okay, that's one point. Mm-hmm. The other point is this: culture in Trinidad and Tobago, parties cannot be at the top of the list for culture. Let's get that straight. Let's get that straight. Parties cannot be at the top of the list if you're talking culture. If you're talking culture and you want to talk pan, you want to talk calypso, you want to talk mass, you want to talk limbo, those are the things that are at the top of the list, not parties, sir. Okay, and so because of our Prime Minister saying she's going to stop parties in a particular venue or in some venues, don't come and tell me she's attacking culture. That is hyperbole. Okay, let's be honest. And I will tell you something, Mr. San Fernando, you sound like you are wrong long enough, right? Not as long as me, but you sound like you are wrong long enough to understand that there's a certain, there's a brand of people in this country who are dishonest and very mischievous. And when they make certain statements like the Prime Minister's attacking culture, there's an underlying issue there that probably, I don't know, I don't think you're so naive, but I am not that naive and I know where they're coming from. Okay, and that is why I would totally reject that statement coming from anybody because it's not true. It cannot be true. It is a mischievous statement and a narrow-minded, myopic statement to make that she's attacking culture. She's not attacking culture, and I'll tell you this. I have been fighting this noise pollution issue for over 30 years in my area. And I was so happy when the group ICNTT came up. I immediately joined that group and I've been fighting with them. A lot of people in this country, the promoters, the bar owners, and I keep saying prominent people, criminologists, political scientists, even medical practitioners, and all these people who stand up, say they're speaking for human rights, right? Mental health people. All of these people remain quiet while I and thousands have been suffering from this noise menace for years. The Prime Minister goes and she makes a statement, and somehow that statement wakes up everyone, right? If that is what it takes to make this issue as topical as it should have been, if the good citizens were discussing it, if that is what it takes, well, that is what it takes. Now we are in the door. Now people are hearing us. Now people are giving us more traction. You understand? So I don't want to hear nobody telling me nonsense about attacking culture. My sanity has been attacked for over 30 years in this country, and there was no one standing up for me. Okay, so give me a break. That's my point. And the next thing, Sean, it goes, you hear what he said about the country, state of the country? It goes right back to what I've been always telling you. This problem, this criminality, problem with the quarry and all these things did not start last year. They didn't start 10 years ago. And well, Karen is coming tomorrow. Okay? And I would like Karen to explain to me when exactly did our court system get so bad, so bogged down, right? When it is with this quarrying situation where the whole licensing thing is totally like, I don't know who's running it. Is it being run? When did these things happen? They didn't happen under the Panda UNC. They didn't happen under Kamla UNC. We're talking about other things now, and we're talking about these things without admitting when and where these problems started. And I'm not trying, listen to me carefully, I'm not trying to remove any blame from the UNC. This is not what I'm doing. But I'm saying 90% of what Trinidad is happened a long time ago. And it pains me when I hear people spending all this time criticizing this particular government, right? This particular government with somebody who is only a second term. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Yes, they might be doing and talking stupid, but we're taking all this energy to criticize this particular government when 90% of the problems in this country started years ago under the other people. That's my point, and I will keep making a point on that.
Caller, I do want to ask you just one question before you go. Right now, at this moment, what will we achieve by criticizing the PNM as opposed to criticizing the current administration and the policies and actions and statements they make now?
No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we should just continue criticizing PNM. I'm saying that we have to be more honest and more critical when we are discussing problems.
Right, but caller, I'm not saying the UNC made any of it, but I can't criticize how they manage things from now moving forward because they're the ones in charge.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Who else can I criticize for the current management if not them? That's the whole point.
Yes, but what I'm saying, sure, we not totally disagree, but I'm saying that it is difficult for me sometimes, the depth I listen to people criticizing this government. And I know in my heart that a lot of the problems started a long time ago.
Did the PNM create Sport TT?
Let's put it this way.
Did the PNM create Sport TT? You see, I understand you're saying a lot of the problems happened a long time ago, but even the current PNM are not the same people. That's point number one. Point number two, regardless of who is guilty of what, just because the PNM are guilty of 90% doesn't make the UNC innocent. And the 10% is enough.
I agree with Sean, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Right.
I am not saying that they are not, that's what I tell you, I'm not saying that the UNC is blameless. And I'm saying this thing with Sport TT is really ridiculous. Right? It's shameful. And I'm saying with everything that happens in this country, our judicial system is so bad that no one can make a jail.
Right.
You know, and for my part, understand me, you know, for my part, the jail should be half full with all these people involved with that in that that sports confusion. You know, but we keep talking about all these things and we keep raising things, right? One of our biggest problem in Trinidad and Tobago is our institutions have all failed and they're still failing.
I mean, Caller, I'll have to ask you to end it there because we're running out of time on the show, and I do have some stuff to get to.
No problem.
But
no problem. Yeah, take it.
But I'll say this. This is why notice, like even today when I was pointing out ridiculous things, there were a lot more PNM names than UNT names because they had 10 years of being in charge, and the UNT now start. So I get where you're coming from, but it's not like I go, oh, it's all UNT's fault. I don't know about everybody else, and I do know that we are more divided now and people are really drawing lines, and to some extent, yes, if you want to complain about the PNM only looking to their past and saying how great their past is, that's fine. I don't know if the media does that on a whole, right? Now, here's the thing. I understand where you're coming from the noise pollution question. What Mr. San Fernando is talking about is that the issue is bigger than how even you see it. Because you're just thinking, noise pollution, why don't you fix it, whatever. And Mr. San Fernando is saying, no. First of all, this is not a solution. It's not getting us a solution. Maybe it is the beginning of a solution, but right now, given the actual practical situation, this ain't really solving it. This is placating people like you. This is basically to get you to say, oh, look, we're doing something. And generally speaking, politicians can very well, more often than not, they kind of give you the breadcrumbs and they make you happy, but they don't actually solve the problem, right? Because, and this is, you said it, culture is more than art, despite the fact that then you wanted to say what part of the arts needed to be prioritized in culture. Here's the sad reality. It doesn't matter what I say culture is, it doesn't matter what you say culture is. Culture, like language, is what the majority says it is. And if the majority says it is loud music and fets, then that is not going to change overnight. And it's going to take effort to get that from that point to a more responsible, more constructive, and more acceptable position. And that and all might be subjective, right? It's tricky because the culture is not culture is more than just the art. The culture is the fact that we have a culture of people who are complacent, at times irresponsible, at times uncaring, and at times complicit. And that seeps into our law enforcement agencies and the EMA and so on, right? But then the culture goes on further, and that's why Mr. San Fernando said, this is a nation, a society of lawlessness. So in a society of wider lawlessness and dysfunction, noise pollution is at the bottom of the barrel, which is part of the reason why, based on, I could agree with Mr. San Fernando in the sense of, there's more to this. This is not just, oh, they're going to solve noise pollution now. That's what we hope. Ashraf hopes that this will now bring the conversation more to the national forefront and make things harder to ignore. But listen, have you seen what they did to the PSA and that whole negotiations for 10%? How they got sidelined when they're ready? I'm not just going to, oh, look at the olive branch and look how nice it is. No, because Mr. San Fernando's point is you could have picked an easier starting point. Not an easier starting point, a more effective starting point. Because what tends to happen is you don't always finish the job. But if your starting point is one of the more impractical areas or least effective, not impractical, I won't say impractical, least effective starting points, if you don't go any further, the effect will be minimal. Bars, music trucks, loud music in maxis, loud music in vehicular sound systems, people playing loud music from the house. These are the kind of things that, in a way, more than, at least depending, relatively speaking, defects. Because during Carnival, no holds barred on that stuff too. All right, we're real running out of time here. We'll take the call quick from Point Fortin, thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Quick.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Renison Jeffrey. I'm calling from the Lucas 1868 platform that is on YouTube and Facebook. Now, I mean, I was here the thing I had prompt with the call into the show.
Sure.
And, you know, we had to be a little truthful. I mean, with the greatest of respect, so I believe you're being a little promiscuous with the truth. Plenty people that's be on the ground. And what we are seeing from what the UNC would have presented before April 28th is two stark difference. People on the ground is shivering in fear from what they are seeing with this war. This war is not this thing that we was forced into without our permission, and people don't like it. And as media personnel, you should report the truth. There are people that is not being able to talk because they have been marginalized. But the large preponderance of the people is saying that there is in a disarray. Look on the port, people who are just work alongside with Nutrien. And we've seen this thing playing out. The reality with Nutrien is 1,400 people right about now. So I don't know where the next dollar coming from. And instead of building up the nation, we are seeing, I don't know if this is a transition period, but it's affecting a lot of people. A lot. And I just wanted to make that contribution here.
I'm not entirely sure where I disagreed with anything you said, though. I mean, I didn't speak to it, but all right. But thank you, caller. Thank you, caller, because we're running out of time. I don't actually disagree with anything he said. Now, I don't know necessarily how far it goes. The Nutrien thing, we've spoken about it. It was not a good sign to us here. The thing is, I'm not going to just be negative about everything just because I'm going to judge each individual situation based on its own merits, right? So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, is he putting that on the plate of the UNC? Is he saying, like what Mr. Mova said, a lot of these things predate the current administration and it's a trickle-along effect? I'm not sure. I don't have time to unpack it. But generally, based on what he said, yes, the situation with Nutrien, let's put it this way. I did not like the Minister of Energy's attempt to spin the situation as a positive. It's like, oh, it's to the benefit of the plants that still are there. That you're basically saying shrinkage was good. That's almost like saying, well, we should declare bankruptcy because that'll be good for us, right? A lot of people want to, anyway, let me not bring that up. Let's say the comment real quick. There will always be criminality in legal drug distribution. But let's go, I just going to skip to the thing. During the days of alcohol prohibition, once alcohol use was legalized and regulated, the criminal element was removed, food for thought. I have brought that up on this show before. The problem is, now with weed, you could maybe make that comparison. With hard drugs, there are various other risk factors that generally does not exist, but can exist for weed and alcohol. Because you could lace weed with stuff, and you could make moonshine that isn't properly quality controlled, that could be dangerous for people to drink. But with regards to hard drugs, even if it is the drug that it is expected to be and not laced with anything, like cocaine laced with fentanyl or the like, or ecstasy with some mystery ingredients that you don't know what it is. Even if it is the drug of choice, it is still more dangerous than marijuana or alcohol because you could generally have a reasonable expectation to survive in your own home from drinking alcohol or smoking weed. Generally, you would have to abuse the hell out of it to die. But with hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, etc., I'm not too sure about ecstasy, to be honest, right? Except with ecstasy, you do have to worry about it being some random concoction that could be very dangerous and lethal. Outside of concerns of stuff being laced with fentanyl. The thing with hard narcotics is that depending on your usage, overdosing, people die from overdosing. Basically, if my memory is correct, it's because they'll come off of the drugs, they won't be as tolerant, but they'll go right back to where they left off, which is large doses because they're chasing the high. Because the initial dose doesn't need to be that high. but then you keep ramping up how much you want to have. And then at some point, that's your norm. But your body might lose some of its tolerance depending on whatever other factors. And then you end up overdosing yourself. Or you potentially just overdose yourself chasing the high regardless. You could be doing hard drugs all the time, and then you just take too much. Because, yes, weed and alcohol is addictive. But generally speaking, you are addicted to alcohol, you get drunk. It's the same drunk. These things are different, and they're more potent. So I am technically of the view that perhaps we should think about regulating them and decriminalizing them. They've done that in Portugal. I'm not sure if it's clear-cut that it is a success. I do think that it might make us better off if done properly. However, look at how they've decriminalized weed. They did it improperly, and it's a disaster. It's essentially a disaster. They decriminalized weed and made it a bigger criminal enterprise. How do you do that? I have no idea. So this is not necessarily an axiom that's 100% true. It can end up backfiring in the most unintended ways, because who would have thought, oh, we decriminalize weed, or more people smoke weed, that's bad, but that could have been a consequence you could have predicted. But the illegal trade growing, and that's the thing, depending on how you do it, the illegal narcotics trade could grow. It could grow. Are they prepared to regulate it like alcohol? I don't know. Let's take the other comment quick. The vulnerable, oh, shucks, we have two more comments. The vulnerability of our oil platforms. Look, I understand that, but the point is, even with inaccurate weapons from World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, or modern, more accurate weapons, why will they attack us? Remember, when Russia hits Kyiv, yes, the missile might hit some random building, but they're still targeting a city, right? For them to hit something of ours, they have to target us. You're not going to aim at Caracas and it takes a left turn at Albuquerque and hit us. So the question is, will Venezuela want to attack us? Because is anyone saying America wants to attack us? I don't think so, right? So I don't think it's that simple. Also, there's limitations on both technical capabilities and ammunition stocks. Venezuela is not like Russia. And it's not like Russia is going to divert 50% of its cruise missile and drone production to Venezuela over something like this. That type of warfare, a lot of the stuff Russia is producing now is not geared to fighting this type of enemy. Let's take the last comment quick. The division started in 1956 by the government and mainstream media houses, so this problem has been in place even today. Until the government start giving all citizens equal justice, we will no longer have division between our ethnicities. And this is the thing, I'm not too sure if the current government, if they're stumbling over what to prioritize, right? Because how do you prioritize non-supporters over supporters? But the moment that you start to make that distinction, even if you don't have ill intentions, it's going to be perceived that way. Right? Then you mix in mismanagement on top of all of that. And it doesn't have to be mismanagement of the politicians. It could also be mismanagement of the public servants. Right? The politicians are not going to know everything. And granted, based on what we've seen, they've proven it. Oh boy, have they proven it on both sides of the aisle. Equality is this ideal that everyone chases. Now, racial equality, religious equality, etc., that's hard enough. But political equality is something that has been given so much lip service to, especially by the current administration in the election campaign. And they, to some extent, still do it, although not as much. And I know it's not easy, but the signs that I'm seeing is that the efforts aren't really there. Too many people are having a different opinion to the UNC supporters. Right? And this is something that if the government was, one, well-intentioned with regards to everybody winning, and two, were proficient in the act of public communications, they would understand, not just understand the challenge, but put things to mitigate the shortfalls, the issues, those challenges, put things to try to compensate for them. I'm not seeing that. So I don't And to Mr. Mover, at some point, it doesn't matter who started it. Israel, Palestine, it doesn't matter who started it. What matters is to get to a solution where it can end. For that case, it's to end the violence. In this case, it's to end the political discrimination, persecution, particularly based on racial grounds, but also party lines. Until we see a party really not just say they want to do it, but actually commit to it. Your values are what you would sacrifice for. Are you, the current administration, sacrificing for equality of treatment across the political spectrum? I would argue no. Therefore, it is not really an organizational value of the government. Even your own political supporters in the PSA had to take a back seat. I know that we're almost out of time, but it's a short video, so I wanna close this show with this, because we're talking about the lawlessness of society. Maybe we need to go in a different direction, try something new, or bring back something old, but in a different way. Let's have a late, but still time to cue this.
190,000 cases at a cost of nearly $3 billion in the last 5 years. That's how serious scamming has become in Singapore, and is why the city-state is turning to judicial caning to try and deter people from this sort of crime. Scamming now accounts for 60% of all reported crimes here. It includes love scams and fake job scams, among others. Under the new legislation, people convicted of such activity will receive a minimum of 6 strokes and a maximum of 24, depending on the severity of the case.
I would say it's pretty painful. If there's this kind of law in place, I guess people will be more taken aback. So they will think twice before scamming others.
I am on my guard now all the time whenever I pick up a call that is not from somebody I know.
To find out more, I'm meeting Joseph Tan. He's a criminal lawyer and represents clients in scam cases, several of whom have been sentenced to corporal punishment.
So I think the whole idea about caning is really not a form of torture, but it's really a lesson, a physical lesson to instill into the offender that if you do something bad, right, this is the physical punishment that you have to go through.
Singapore's use of caning gained international attention in the 90s when an American teenager was sentenced to 4 strokes for vandalism. Michael Fay described the experience as excruciatingly painful and said it left permanent scars. The punishment is carried out by a specifically trained prison officer with a 1.2-meter-long rattan cane striking the bare buttocks of the offender under strict medical supervision.
You'll be stripped naked, you'll be tied to a rack, and that is where the caning will be administered. I think the very fact that the Singapore government is introducing caning in scam cases shows a zero-tolerance approach.
Singapore has intensified efforts to rein in scamming in recent years. That includes widespread public education to stop people from getting swindled. But the problem has proliferated in Southeast Asia. Cyber scam hubs in countries like Cambodia and Myanmar have cheated people out of billions of dollars worldwide. Recently, Singapore police seized more than $100 million in assets tied to Chen Ji, a British-Cambodian national accused of operating forced labor camps running multi-billion-dollar scams. But will caning crack down on the crime? That's hard to say. Still, it sends a clear message. Scammers face stiff punishment in Singapore. Patrick Falk, Al Jazeera, Singapore.
And as we end, I'd just like to point out, yeah, we could do something extreme like this. It would be extreme first, right? Forget corporal punishment in schools. Let's bring back corporal punishment with regards to our actual adult offenders. Here's the rub. It needs the underlying foundation of a properly operating criminal justice system underneath it. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter what the punishment is. That's why I say people who want the death penalty reinstituted. 1, it was never removed. 2, what's the point of pushing for more death penalty if we can't actually get people convicted? Because any punishment, if done unjustly, you know, you get a mistaken identity situation, false conviction, wrongfully convicted, that's not good either. The thing is, Singapore has the foundation, and I guess this goes back to what Mr. Mova says. It's a couple of things. One, they pay the politicians well. Do we pay our politicians well enough? People don't necessarily want to hear that. But to encourage them to not enter into corruption. Two, they have zero tolerance policy. But I think three, they have a situation where they are more efficient than us. And that is expressed usually with the ease of doing business. Maguette Wade, a Senegalese, and I think she operates in America, but France, but a Senegalese businesswoman, she points to Africa's poor ease of doing business as a major contributing factor, or the contributing factor for corruption in Africa. And I would argue it's a major contributing factor for corruption here in TNT. But more than that, ease of doing business also points to the ability to do your work efficiently and effectively. And if we don't have those things, the lawlessness will continue. At the very least, because why will people obey the law when corruption will be readily apparent to the public? Regardless of who, because this is the thing, it doesn't matter who is in power. Nothing is achieved with regards to arresting the decline. We need to demand more. The question is, who will we demand of? Who will actually deliver on the promises? Promises that will shake up our society, that will cause our pre-existing cultural assumptions to tremble, that will make more people than you would think uncomfortable and uneasy, because change is hard and people don't like change. But at what point will we acknowledge that we need change? All right, let me not go any further over time. Thanks to the callers, thanks to the commenters. At the end of the day, this is our nation. And I'm grateful for those who are willing to engage in discussions. But here's the thing, now we have to figure out how to encourage other people to engage in discussions, not just here, but on any platform, any medium, anywhere, with anybody. I know that that's not so simple. But it's something to work towards if we want to improve things. Hey, on Breakthrough yesterday, we had 2 tenured artistic directors that basically said there's something exciting about working at home because there's still a chance to build up our nation. Everywhere else in the developed world is developed. We are developing. It's an opportunity for us to pioneer our future. And that could be exciting and satisfying and rewarding, but we are so complicit and complacent. It's almost like if we're waiting for someone to do the job for us rather than taking a hold of the adventure ourselves. And I hope that more people will be willing to join on the adventure. I will do my small part. We all do our small part. Things will get better. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe. Don't forget it's nice to be nice. Have a good day. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Good day and welcome to this week's episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am your host, Rondell Donowa, attorney at law. Once again, I'm happy to bring the law and you. Of course, you can stream us on WESN CC as well as our traditional media and our podcast, Strictly Legal with Rondell